Hmm. Alright, it says I'm streaming. We shall see. Got it open over here. We'll see if the audio and video pops up and if everything's okay. Here we are. Good. Do I have audio? Audio. Where's the audio? Open over here. There it is. Okay, good. So it's the Nazarite bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. I'm just gonna mute this. Okay. So here we are. It is Monday night. I have a cup of tea. I almost considered not broadcasting. I was like, should I, shouldn't I? And I was, you know what, go for it. If any time that you get to sit and have a cup of tea and engage with people is at least potentially a blessing. And I'm very much on board. A few comments to read and a second, a few chats, a couple of chats from that I still haven't finished and that I would like to finish. And I went live semi-spontaneously. So you're gonna have to bear with me here. Is someone here? No. Oh, one person here. Once again, it might be me, it might be someone else. Hello there. Hi there. Let's pin that. Hi. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the chat. Hang on a second. The chat from 26th, so a few days ago. Hang on a sec. I'm trying to see if that's the actual chat that I want to get to. I'm hoping. Oh, okay. So here, somebody else is here. Hello, somebody else. What's up? I hope all is well with you. Well, come on then. Come on, chat. Okay. So here we are in the chat from a few days ago. Okay, Ariel says, "You got the Mana Mana song in my head, been whistling it all day practically." Hey, that's great. I mean, it's nothing quite like the Mana Mana song. Hey, it's definitely a good earworm, usually. So let's see. Nancy was asking for you to watch the Mongolian throat singing Hun and impersonate. Hun, I'm not sure what Hun, I'm not sure what you mean by Hun, but okay. I know that Hun is short for honey, but I don't think you were going for that. And to impersonate, I don't think so. I really, really don't. All right, let's see. Sneezer says, personally, I'm questioning my beliefs about the Trinity. So again, me as a Hebrew dude, I have no real concept of the Trinity. I know what other Christians or followers of Yeshua have told me, but it's a more exclusivary perspective. God is in infinite persons. You know what? I think I did read that chat at the time. Maybe I was bouncing back and forth at the time again. Seek Truth said, my family was definitely worried about your family when the bombs were dropping. We kept you in our prayers. I appreciate that, Seek Truth. Thanks a bunch. I definitely appreciate it. That was one of many wars, unfortunately, one of many operations. It was, ugh, still is, blech. Okay, yes, I remember. So I was skipping along in the chat. So maybe this is not the chat that I was looking for. Maybe it's a different one. Hang on a sec. I'm gonna find it. I'll find the chat. There was one chat at some point last week where I missed a lot of it. And by missed, I mean I simply didn't get to it. So hang on a second. I'm gonna try and see if I could find it. Maybe it was before that one, the new moon. Yes, it makes sense that it was the new moon Q&A. That makes sense. Right at the beginning of the month, the Hebrew month, the lunar month. Let's see. I think that I had to leave and there was a bunch in the chat that I wanted to get to. So let's hope this is it. I have a cup of tea. I have a few cookies here, or sweet crackers, again, whatever you want to, or biscuits if you want to call them biscuits. Okay, still one or two people here, but still no engagement here in the chat. Well, it's Monday, people are working, it's a new week. Most of the people who watch are likely at work or in the middle of something or other early in the morning on Monday. Or not really early in the morning, but afternoon Monday, I suppose. Arzu G Volleyball asks, where will this human condition go? I mean, I'm not sure if he was referring. No, he wasn't referring to somebody else there. I guess it was a question to the general chat at the time. Far be it from me to know where this human condition will go, at least in phase one. I know that phase two will begin, or some phase will begin, after after we partake of the fruit of the tree of life. I always saw this thing as well, always, not since birth, but shortly after that, as humanity phase one, right? And we return, we partake of the fruit of the tree of life. That's the beginning of phase two. Sure, you could have different phases between one and two, culminating in the resurrection of the dead, or Tchiyat HaMetim, which is partaking of the fruit of the tree of life in the way that I conceptualize it, right? Where it's not life as opposed to death, or death as opposed to life, but it's a new life, a life that is without death. Death is taken away, right? And the tears are dried off every face. Where will this human condition go? Far be it from me to say, but I think that we come together eventually as one human race experiencing this human condition when we are able to embrace the spirit in a way which unites us rather than divides us. Well, wouldn't that be the great thing, huh? Hey, Sir Smokes-a-Lot is here. Good day, my friend. Good to see you. And you. It's good to have you here, man. Angel's Life. Hey, Angel's Life. Shalom. Can you please pray for me? I have leukemia. Please pray for me. Leukemia to go away. Thanks so much. Well, I'll tell you, I hope you feel better. I hope that it's curable. I hope you're getting treatment if you are inclined to get treatment. And may your leukemia go away. And we need a cure for all cancers. Angel's life indeed. Angel's life. An angel is a messenger. What is your message to us this fine evening or afternoon, Angel's life? If you are indeed living that life of a messenger, what is your message? Please share. I'd love to hear it. Sanizir answered to Arzu saying, it will probably look worse before it gets better, but there is a long road ahead. Well, Hayom im bekolot ishma'u. Today, if to his voice you hearken. Right? When does the Son of David come? When we embrace him. We are able, when we merit his arrival, or one way or another, we merit his arrival. Hey, feeling that the hell is coming soon, says Arzu. I see great beauty, said Nancy Roach. Well, that's lovely. I see great beauty is a lovely way to go about it, assuming that she was replying to what Arzu asked. Where will this human condition go? I'm just one tiny little cog in a great machine of this universe, and I don't even know where I'm gonna go. I know where I'm aiming, and I know kind of partly what's stopping me, but I barely know where I'm gonna go. To know where the human condition will go. Hopefully to good places, places of truth, places of honor, places of, and not honor in the negative sense of ego, status seeking, I don't know what, but real, genuine honor through humility and through love. Wouldn't, I mean, humility is the source of all good things. Okay, but was that all? No, it's not all. There was a lot more before. Let's see, should I try and see where I arrived then? No, I'll just go with whatever is here on the screen. Arzu said, my cousin in Israel for a long time and got citizenship. He welcomed me to Judaism, but I did not. So he became Jewish, he converted, I'm assuming. He welcomed me to Judaism, but I did not. Hi, says Angels. Hey, Robert Harrison, good to see you, man. Good to see you. I hope your week is off to a good start. They say that there is no cure, but I believe God will heal me. I have had it for 10 years. I just tend to get sick a lot, can't be around a lot of people because I get sick easily. That really sucks. Still doing reaction. Yes, I am. It's just that this time I didn't want to react to anything because it was too late, and I'm feeling, it's midnight now, midnight and 1 minute. This might be a quickie, I don't know. I'm always glad to go live, always glad to, address questions, conclude the chat, talk about the weekly Torah portion, whatever the case may be. It's always, almost always a lot of fun, and eventually it's 100% of the time fun. So I'm glad that I went live, even if I'm tired, and hopefully I'll be able to give you, my full attention and my um, whatever good that will do, right? But not reacting tonight because if I'm reacting to someone else's material or video or suggestion, I'd want to give it again attention. So this is something I'm more used to, let's say, and I'm more in the habit of doing, thank God. So I can do it more so even when I'm tired. I continue to pray for fast for healing. Well, I would think that fasting would be something that's a no-no if you're being treated for leukemia or if you want to get the nutrients to fight it in whatever way you can. Even though there may be no cure in Western medicine, and I'm assuming you're speaking of Western medicine, it could be that stranger things have happened. You can't be around people, that sucks. Hit the like button, says Robert Harrison. Thank you, I appreciate that. Robert Harrison, thanks so much for your prayers. I can't thank you enough. Yeah, I couldn't even begin to know what it's like to live with such a thing. I've had people close to me who had different sorts of cancer, and um, it seems, well, seems challenging and difficult to say the very least. So I hope you get good tidings. I hope that a cure will be found for you and all those who have this disease, and all diseases should be lifted out. We'll be able to live good lives and healthy lives and happy lives. That's not necessarily what stems directly downwind from all diseases being eradicated, but eventually, of course, we all fall prey to disease and we all die. But it would be nice to get rid of more diseases, I suppose. Or maybe I'm simply not thinking it through, but it seems that it says, is it Midrash? Midrash or commentary? Midrash or commentary on, I think it's Isaiah. I don't remember the chapter and verse. Right? The doctor was given permission to heal, and the wrongdoer, let's say, was given permission to do wrong and to mm, deteriorate into chaos, let's say. There is that idea of balance, a kind of, in this world, of good and evil. It's always a push and pull, give and take between these and these forces and those forces, embodied in all of creation, embodied through the human being. Sickness is something that eventually is needed, and again, we all get sick, we all die. But to be able to control it, and not with any kind of hubris, with real humility of we are eradicating more diseases and finding defenses against other diseases and minimizing the symptomatic, the symptoms of other diseases, to give people the opportunity without without them suffering too much. I'm being very naive, of course, and hippy dippy right now, but yeah, because eventually disease, death, and evil will be all taken away. And so, why couldn't it be possible, much like science and other practices have been able to minimize symptoms and treat and cure? Then definitely doable that all the diseases we know would be taken away. Of course, that probably means that as progress is made and these cures are found, other things will be able to take us down and we'll be susceptible to those. That way I would have my cake and die from it too. Good Times TV is hilarious, said Robert Harrison. Well, things were going on before in the chat that I didn't see. Ariel says, I can sympathize with Jews that want to immigrate to Israel. Problem is, this leaves a void in other parts of the world where people that do not identify with being Jewish become completely naive. Well, what does not identifying as Jewish have to do with naivety? I'm not quite certain there. Angel's Life says, no, I am not being treated. They say no medicine or cure, but God will cure me. Well, it's always good to have faith. I think it's good to have both, I suppose, faith and treatment. But of course, you do you. That idea of choosing life, which originates in the Torah, at least, in the conception of this channel, that idea of choosing life over death, to say God will cure me, I am very much of the opinion that God helps those who help themselves. And so even if there is no cure, and even if you are not being treated, tell me, how are you treating yourself? Literally, quite literally, if you don't mind sharing. How is it making you feel? Robert says, exactly, I wouldn't fast. God expects us to use wisdom. Right, that's kind of what I'm saying. Summer will never die. That's right. That's right. It's always summer somewhere. Plus, I when I don't get winter blues, I'm able to carry some summer in my heart. That's the hope of summer. That that longing, that yearning, that imagination that comes blooming in my mind's eye when I think of walking around with the sun on my face in a t-shirt, or, in previous years it would be, walking the doggy, and walking in the city, getting to this. It's just that there's a kind of liveliness, a kind of, well, that exists in summer. I'm a sucker for summer. 7 things that were created before Earth. So I know of 7 things that were created between the sunset and the stars coming out on the Edenic Sabbath. Right? Aton, Bepiaton. Hang on a second. Yes. Let's look at that for a moment. Pirkei Avot. Hang on. 7 things between sunsets. Between sunset and stars. Let's see. Will it find it? No. Okay, so here. Shiva Dvarim. I'll write it in Hebrew. Aton, V'Pia Aton. Hang on a second. Because I'm not sure. First of all, you tell me, where are you getting the 7 things? Oh, I'm sorry, that's 10 things. In Pirkei Avot, it's 10 things that were between sundown and the stars coming out on the Edenic Sabbath. So 7 things that were created before Earth. Let's see. Shiv'a Dvarim. I'll try and translate it. Shiv'a Dvarim Nivreu. Hine, yes. Kodem Shenivra Olam. That's in the Talmud, it says. Okay. Torah, Tshuva, Eden, the Garden of Eden, Gehinnom, the valley of Hinnom, also known as kind of purgatory, the chair or the throne, right? The chair of honor, the seat of honor, the temple, and the name of the Messiah. Okay, so this was in the Talmud. Now, in the Talmud, it's a baraita, meaning it was a part of the Mishnah that was not in the Mishnah when it was sealed, right? When it was closed. So let's see. Yes, Torah, heaven, 5 more. So it's Torah, it was heaven, it's tshuva, repentance, Gei Ben Hinnom, purgatory, seat of glory or throne, right? The house of holiness, Bet HaMikdash, the temple, V'Shmo Shel Mashiach. Now, each and every one of these have Um, you know what? Let's just go. Robert Harrison, what do you have to say about that? About these 7 things that were created? He continues and says, Robert says, I heard a great podcast about Gan Eden. I'm thinking about referring you to Reaction. Yes, please put the link in the description, comments, this one when I'm done, or well, any other comment really, or post it in the viewer or whatever that you can. You can post it. There's some new community feature in beta right now, or maybe it's not in beta. My name is Faith, says Angel's Life. I just read the Bible and I just read the Bible and pray. I use spirulina for energy and it helps me. Without spirulina, I get tired a lot. What do I know that in the context of? I think I've had it with tahina, sesame sauce, or sesame dip, or sesame, or halva. Yes, I've had it with halva. I've had it with, yes, I think I've had it with halva. Thanks so much, I won't fast. Well, see, Angel's Life, now I'm getting a vibe from you. Because if it's something you've been doing, well, for a while, if you've had it for 10 years, and all it takes is Robert Harrison, the stranger, and now you're not going to fast, that makes me question your motives here. Hey, James Bong is here. Shalom. Good to see you, everyone. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהכל נהיה בדברו. שהכל נהיה בדברו. Everything was made with his speech. Now, the funny thing is that we open that blessing, we say Baruch atah. Atah meaning you, second person. And bidvaro is third person. We start with someone that's close, and we end with someone who's, away. Hang on a second. I want to see how much I'm lagging. I'm gonna unmute this for a second. Shalom. Good to see you, everyone. Okay. All right. So I'm what, 30 seconds or so behind, I would say. All right. But that means that Robert Harrison is going to be typing, or so I hope. What is it that you have to say about the 7 things that were created before? By the way, it doesn't say before the earth. It says ha'olam. Ha'olam can mean different things depending on the context. And it's not earth, it's more this, let's call it this creation. But it's not earth specifically. Though earth is part of that creation that it alludes to or that it calls ha'olam. English can be such a funny language, said Sneezer. Well, again, we were talking about something earlier there. Good Times TV just hates everyone, LOL, said Sneezer. So wait, okay, I'm sorry. Ariel Marshall said, I can sympathize with Jews that want to immigrate to Israel. Problem is, this leaves a void in other parts. I'm still thinking about that because I'm looking at it now. Now, he's not here. I suppose Ariel, maybe he'll be here later, maybe, no, well, I don't think he's here now, but I'm trying to understand when he said that it would fill a void, it would leave a void in other parts of the world where people that do not identify with being Jewish become completely naive. I'm wondering what he meant by that. Jewish people, oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't the end. He had to cut off the comment. Naive about Jewish people and ending up believing a load of Bixlachen. Is it Bixlachen? Bixlachen. Bixlachen. What is that? Is it Dutch? Doesn't sound, I mean, there's Tuslachen, but that's not spelled the same. Is it German? Is it Yiddish? Is it not anything? Google doesn't recognize the word. Well, maybe he wanted to spell one thing and spelled another. Sunnyzer is here. Hey, man. Good to see you. But anyway, okay. So he's saying when other Jewish people who don't identify with their Jewishness are bereft of people who do identify as Jews and make Aliyah, I'm assuming as a result or in consequence of whatever, something to do with that, they leave a void in other parts of the world. Well, listen, I've spoken with people who think that every single Yid, every single Jew should make Aliyah and come to Eretz Israel, come to the land of Israel right now. And I've spoken to people who think, no, we have the people in Israel, and the people in the diaspora are fulfilling their mission. They have things to do there that belong to them over there. We don't want them all to come here. You want them to be in different places, whether it's the well, let's put it this way. There's that Lurianic Kabbalistic idea of raising up, elevating the sparks. And I know of at least one memra, one teaching from Chabad, from the recent Chabad Rebbe, peace be upon him, Rabbi Schneerson, right, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. A Chabadnik at work told me that he said that all the sparks had already been elevated and were kind of in limbo or something to that effect. I don't precisely recall the phrasing, but that sparks were already all, fixed up and brought back. Most people, however, Hasidic, Litvik, Kabbalistic, whatever, still think that there's a job to do, and having Jewish people in the diaspora, people would say it has to do with reincarnation. People would say it has to do with, again, raising those sparks. People would say it have to do with, well, reincarnation not only in the soul, but no, let's forget that. What I meant originally as reincarnation is it, and that's it. So people are left without influential Jewish people, and then they end up believing all kinds of stuff. I think that while having Jews that care and identify as Jewish and who are part of that culture or whatever, while that is beneficial to those who would otherwise be without it, I guess it has benefits, right? However, if you raise people to think critically, then it doesn't matter if there are Jews there or not. They would inquire, they would be, I think, curious, seeing as how the world is preoccupied with Jews, or at least some parts of the world. They would want to do their research. They would want to be able to think of it and contemplate it and come to their own conclusions. So it doesn't necessarily mean that without Jewish people who are influencing others who are Jewish, they wouldn't they would believe anything or come to the wrong conclusions. They could come to the right conclusions. But I don't know, not growing up, being raised in Israel, thank God. I never had that experience. And I don't really count the 3 years in the Netherlands as that. I didn't have the experience. I mean, in part it was, but I didn't have the real experience of being a minority, of being, at least not for a very prolonged period of time, I guess, even though technically I was 3 years in the Netherlands. But I digress. Or do I? I'm not sure. James Bong says, how come most Orthodox say we can never be as good as the sages, but yet believe in reincarnation? Who is to say whose work has been completed? I think the reason why, I don't know if most Orthodox, but I definitely have met many people in Orthodoxy who, when they talk about, let's say, our sages, or when they talk about our matriarchs, patriarchs, they say, oh, and may we merit to get to the level of X, Y, or Z. We are, in other words, in the inverse, it's, we are so lowly, we are so at the bottom, scraping the bottom of the barrel of these generations. We are, without this and without that, and oh, these are people who receive divine revelation really close up. This name, that name, Moses, once in a creation individual. So it's not that they say we can never be as good. They say, in my experience, the thing that they would say is, may we merit, right, to get to those levels. There is a reverence, of course, right? That's why they're called Chazal, or I mean, it's this title of it's a technical title. These are the people who bound the Mishnah and the Talmud, right, and who set it up. And these are the people who passed down Mesorah, and the traditions, and who solidified and codified the halacha and all. People who, according to different stories and midrash, could do amazing things, great things, control the elements. They had great knowledge. In some things, they had less knowledge. If I'm not mistaken, I've heard look, the Mishnah and the Talmud are full of things that, if you only look at the external, on the surface reading of the words, And in some cases you must because it pertains to physical, practical, in-your-face halacha. But there are different levels to all of these texts. And the Mishnah and the Talmud, Jerusalem, Babylonian, and the like, are also sacred texts. They are also multi-layered. They are also Kabbalistic in nature, representing a certain divine revelation of Malchut, of Torah Shebe'al Peh. And that's why it's oral. That's Malchut. And so when they say we can never be as good, I think it has to do with the deterioration or the degeneration of the generations, right? What's called Yeridat Hadorot, where as we go down, right, through the course of time, from top to bottom, from the beginning of creation and until now, many things are gained, but also many things are lost. And so now we are at this place where, for instance, we have this ability to communicate. That's amazing. Look what I'm doing right now. But on the other hand, so many people are feeling lonely and isolated. And in the very same way, Yeridat HaDorot does bring, right, the decreasing of this divine, the decreasing of wisdom, the decreasing of lore, the decreasing of tradition. That's something where they say we can never be as good as them. They lived at the time of, the Second Temple, and they lived at the time when the great yeshivas in Babylon were operating, and they again could do amazing things according to tradition, according to midrash. And if we believe in reincarnation, all it means is that, first of all, nobody is disputing the fact that a layman, forget, some Kabbalist rabbi, a layman, a person, man, a woman, they can have, if I'm not mistaken, a woman could also, they could have what's called an ibur. Ibur means impregnation, meaning that there's a time when either because of what you're doing, either because of what you're learning, either it's because of where you are geographically, either it's because of your genes, either it's because of whatever connection there is, something sparks a connection between you and, let's say, one of the sages of the Mishnah, one of the Tanaim, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, or Rabbi Akiva, right? Let's say. Now, I don't know Shara Gilgulim by the Arizal, right? The Lurianic Gate of Reincarnation. I haven't studied that book. I'm not into Lurianic Kabbalah either way, for the past just over a decade, I would say. But let's say that, there is that idea of reincarnation, and I don't know where it stands in the Lurianic sense or in any other sense for that matter, but I do understand that there's something called an ibur. Ibur, right? Reincarnation, you could say, is when something needs to be fixed, something needs to be repaired, something needs to be repaid, something needs to be adorned and elevated. And ibur, impregnation, is when, let's say, that spirit or soul or fragment, right? That spiritual fragment, it would temporarily take up residence in a living body, not possessing it, but influencing it, right? Much like a fetus in the womb does not possess the mother, but it does influence the mother heavily. In the same way, kind of, the soul of the sage or, ancient master or whatever it is, or just, or some schmo from a couple of generations ago, I don't know. When there's an ibur, it means that for a time you are influenced and are able to create and cultivate perhaps a connection with a deceased individual, right? Or with the soul, right? That fragment. And it's able to intuitively sort of teach you things and it's able to impart wisdom in some ways. And I'm not saying it's going to be like this, you speaking to the ghost of a sage from 2,000 years ago or 200 years ago. I don't know how it goes down. I don't think I've ever experienced ibur, at least not consciously. I have felt a kinship to this sage or that sage, but I don't think I've ever been under that sort of influence. I know that it does exist, as opposed to Gilgul Neshama, reincarnation of a soul, which is ordinarily after death, but the idea of ibur is not that it goes from, body to body or from mineral to vegetable, from mineral to vegetable, from vegetable to animal, from animal to speaking. Doesn't go through that process, let's say. It's something temporary that happens, and then it's able, without death, it's able to sort of leave the host, if you will, That would be a bur. Who's to say whose work has been completed is exactly right. If you look at Sha'ar HaGilgulim of the Arizal, if you look at the Gate of Reincarnation by Rabbi Chaim Vital, right, writing the Ariz lore, the Ariz Torah, and he says, I mean, the entire book is how the different people throughout history were reincarnations of previous people mentioned in the Bible and such, and in the Talmud and in the Mishnah, and they are explaining through the drushim, through the different teachings, how the connections are manifested in creation, what this person did, right, in order to fix or repair or complete a different person's task, right? What did he say? The work has been completed. Who's to say whose work has been completed? Incomplete work. That's correct. Incomplete work. The very famous one, the very, very, very famous one is Pinchas hu Chanoch hu Eliyahu. That's not Lurianic Kabbalah. That's Midrash. That's Second Temple teachings, or maybe even previous, basically Second Temple, right? Because that's when the Midrashim were compiled. It is a good question, James Bond, and I mean I'm ranting about it right now for God knows how long, but I just want to make myself clear because I don't want to get things wrong. I wouldn't want to say the wrong thing. Okay, where were we? Robert says, "What's the reason you say they got kicked out of Eden?" Well, I mean, as far as I can tell, the reasoning is laid out right there in the Torah. You ate from the tree. You listened to your wife. You tempted the woman. So that's sort of laid out right there in the Pshat, right? In the basic text. Now, I'm of the opinion that the reason that they got kicked out is not because of the tree or the fruit or the serpent. I'm thinking it's the fact that that was set up to happen that way. The reason that we were kicked out was that when Adonai said, Ayeka, where are you? Adam did not reveal himself in his shame and in his nakedness and say, I'm sorry, I screwed up. How about if we try this again? No, it was, I'm afraid, I'm hiding. And then eventually, when God is like, what? How do you know you're naked? Did you do what could this? Did you? And he goes, well, it's that woman. There was no taking responsibility. There was no taking on the accountability, even if she went first and gave it to him. I think that the transgression happened, but the reason we got kicked out is not because of the transgression. The reason we got kicked out is because of not taking responsibility and not owning it and making the plea to do better. Something like that. Now again, mentioning Lurianic Kabbalah, it would say that the reason we were kicked out is because that was just a metaphysical, spiritual, and physical, right, made of earth, manifestation of the breaking of the vessels. That Kabbalistic breaking of the vessels, which does not appear in the teachings of the Ramak, at least not in Pardes Rimonim. The breaking of the vessels, that idea, right, the fallen sparks, elevating the sparks of the broken vessels. The vessels in the beginning of creation received a certain light and they were able to handle it, but then they received a great, great light and they were not able to handle it and they shattered. Just like you can look at the sun, you can take a glance at the sun, but you can't stare at the sun directly with your naked eye without suffering damage because you're simply not built to receive so much light through such a sensitive instrument. And unless you have filters, if you have filters, a few pairs of sunglasses, some old film, whatever it is, you put darkness in front of you and it filters out the light to make it bearable. And in that way, the divine revelation was able then, through the process that's iterated in the Kabbalistic, in the Lurianic teachings, right, able to make creation happen, right, through narrowing, through constraining, Aleph, Bet. There's that idea in the Lurianic Kabbalah of the story in Eden of the thing breaking apart just as something wonderful was going to happen. Shabbat was going to arrive. We were going to eat from the tree of life, then eat from the tree of knowledge and of good and evil. Something to that effect. But we kind of switched it around. We took the good and evil first, barring ourselves from that Edenic Shabbat. But why we got kicked out, you could say it's the breaking of the vessels and then that being manifested and replayed in Eden to teach us what it is that we are supposed to do. How is it that we are supposed to get back? We have work to complete. We have a job to do, sparks to elevate, rebuild those vessels through our actions, right? Torah and commandments and good deeds. And then it will be complete. And then we will be able to withstand that light and look directly at that proverbial sun because we earned it. We merited it through blood, sweat, and tears. And this time when we return to Eden, after all that, we will have learned from the experience and we will have earned our place in Eden and go to the path of the tree of life. And so we got kicked out in order to teach us the value of returning. Something like that. But I still think that technically speaking, it wasn't the sin that got us kicked out. It was our reaction to the sin. Who is the guy that Chabad people say is Messiah and he has a divine spark into him? Well, look, Chabad, like any Chassidut, has the idea of the Rebbe, right? Of the Rabbi, of the Tzaddik, the sage, the righteous leader. And there is the idea that's unique to Hasidism of that master-apprentice dynamic relationship where there's a hitkashrut b'tzaddik. You bind yourself to the tzaddik. You bind yourself to this sage, to your master. And they have very close relationships, right? Hasidim and their admorim and their masters. Admor is an acronym, Adonenu, Morenu, Verabenu, which is our Lord, not Lord as in, my Lord, our Lord, our teacher, and our master. The connection in many Hasidiyot, and certainly in Chabad, is one of adoration and admiration. And this idea of the divine spark being in them belongs to each and every, if you're Chabad, you say that it belongs to each and every Jew. We all have the divine spark in us. As for Messiah, he has Nishmat Mashiach, Nitzotz mi Nishmat Mashiach, a spark from the soul of Messiah. Soul of Messiah has to do with those things that were created before creation, right? Lifnei ha'olam. One of them is the name of the Messiah. The name bespeaks an essence. Essence is associated with the soul, right, with the neshama. But the guy that Chabad say, some people say, some Chabadnikim say he's dead, he died, he left no heir. Some say, no, he's still alive and well at 770 Eastern Parkway, Brooklyn, New York. Some say that his death was faked, his death was I don't know what, that he was resurrected. I know that there are some Chabadnikim who I haven't ascertained this, but I know that they consider the Messiah, right? It'll be Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the last Messiah, the last Chabad Rebbe, who died in, when was it? Did he die in 96? When did he die? Rabbi Lubavitch. When did he die? 97? 97? Hang on a second. Let's see. Rabbi Milubavitch. Hang on a second. 1994. Yeah, okay. Mid-90s. I was close. Mid-90s. So yeah, some people, as difficult as it was, were able to accept it. Some Chabadnikim say, no, he is still alive and well. Some are, I guess, I don't know what they say, but I've met many Chabadnikim in my life. Well, many, who's to say what's many? I've met plenty of Chabadnikim in my life. And it could go here or there. Basically, they think this guy is God in flesh. Not all of them. A small minority, I think, of Chabadnikim do think that he is a God incarnate. They call him a Rabbi Akadosh Baruch Hu, which is a title usually reserved for the Creator and not a creation. Kadosh Baruch Hu, Holy One, blessed be He. beside Jesus. Yes, some do think that Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson is God incarnate. It's a very small part of Chabad, and I I haven't met one. I know that they used to exist. Maybe they still exist. Maybe they don't exist. Evening, lads and ladies, says Ariel. Hello, hello, hello. I found out today, said Sneezer, I gave away a $200,000 magic card about a decade ago. I don't know what a magic card is. Who's using the Droid Cam app? I am. This is my phone here, and I'm using an app, and it didn't used to have this stamp, but now it does. Magic card. Wait, magic card or magic carp? Remember Magic Carp? Isn't he a Pokemon? It was a birthday gift nearly 20 years ago, and you gave it away a decade ago. I still don't know what it is. Black Lotus? Black Lotus. I mean, that sounds familiar, but I don't know what you're talking about. Robert says, I heard HN that the people who wrote the Mishnah was not biologically Hebrews, they were convert. No, there were people who converted and who became great sages. But I think that you may be referring the people who wrote the Mishnah. No, the person who compiled the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda HaNassi, he was a Hebrew, but let's say even if they were converts, all good, they are under the covenant. I stopped playing, so I gave away all my decks, not even sure to whom. Oh wow! So tell me, what were you playing at the time? Were you a good gamer? Were you ever pro? Sneezer, what would you do if you had that money? 200,000. What was it? 200,000 card? $200,000 card? What was it? I'm really curious. I wouldn't be worried about eviction, I'll tell you that much. Oh, I'm sorry that it's a worry that you have, Sneezer. I hope things look up. I really do. Ariel, says Robert, I have found 5 great interesting videos for Hebrew Nazarite to react. All right, good, let's do this. So yeah, send them my way. I'd probably, said Sneezer, put it into my charity, Digitizing Humanity, the first interactive digital graveyard. Ariel says, bit hard to say who is and who is not biologically Hebrew nowadays. After all, the exiles, etc. One thing I can say is that a lot of the descriptions for non-Hebrews in the Tanakh describe people that look nothing like modern people. So Sneezer says to him, so he can't go by nose? Well, v'haricho beyirat Adonai, that's what it says, right? That he will discern the fear of the Lord with his nose, right? With the sense of smell, with scent. It's very nuanced, the nose. I definitely qualify. Hooray! Robert says, I actually had the names of the Gentiles who converted that wrote it, but didn't write them. Okay. Now look, if you're talking about commentary, right? Something like Onkelos, who was, I think, the grandson of Nero, the Caesar. So that's someone who did a lot. Ariel says, oh dear, well, not unless you want to sound like you are quoting Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, wait, what did I miss about Red Riding Hood? Either I'm tired or I missed something in the chat or I simply don't know where I am. Okay, HN qualifies because of my schnoz. Okay, so he had the names that wrote the Mishnah. Okay. Oh my, what a big nose you have. Yes, all the better to manage your money, Mr. Wolf. Ha! Okay, so now I get it. Okay, it wasn't something I missed. Absolutely loved your answer. Absolutely loved your answer. Very insightful. LOL. Appreciate it. Thanks, James Bong. I agree, HN. Eden was set up to be temporary, God knew we'd eat the fruit uninstructed, of course. We are curious little doodles, aren't we, humans? I heard not repenting? No, tshuva was created. Listen, it's said that tshuva was created before the world. Now, that idea of tshuva corresponds to a certain divine revelation. The day of the world, the world that has 7 days of the week is the seven lower revelations. That idea of tshuva being created before the 7 days means that this world here, whether it's the physical, spiritual, metaphysical, everything that encompasses what begins with Bereshit, right? With that big bet of Bereshit, right? In the beginning, or in the beginning of. Everything that went on before that had to do with a higher revelation. And, right, that manifested without a duality. Something a lot more straight and true, if you will, even if it is going to the left, leaning to the left. It itself is harmonious. The three top ones are, right? The top of the tree, top, the bottom. The idea of tshuva, right, let's say, pertains to the mother energy. And the idea of the world of 6 days and 1 day of rest is the masculine and feminine in the lower, let's say, right? The prince and the princess, the man and the woman, right? The two lovers, and so on. So tshuva, being created before the world, means you have somewhere to return to. That's literally what it means. Lashuv, to return. That's what that is. To reach those higher places is to return to who you are originally. So I heard not repenting. That's not what it said. Ariel says, I don't think I could be any more certain that I have at least some Jewish Israelite ancestry. Prefer not to explain why. Sanizir says, I was born in a Jewish hospital. Does that count? Hey, you know what? Some people would say maybe. I don't think so. Doesn't count, I think. Prefer not to explain why. Hey, okay, that's your prerogative. Traditionally, the nose would be for storing it, Sneezer. Knack, 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 knack. Store money up my schnoz. Did that too. I can hold a toonie in mine. A toonie? Gonna have to Google that quickly. What is a toonie? A toonie is a Canadian $2 coin introduced in 1996. All right, the more you know. Benjamin was described as a wolf. That's right, Binyamin Ze'ev Yitraf. Right, לערב יחלק שלל. לבוקר ולערב יחלק. בנימין זאב יטרף לבוקר ולערב יחלק שלל. Yes, that's right. A wolf. That's also why, by the way, the symbol in the IDF for those who are around Yerushalayim, it's a wolf, or it was. Maybe it's not anymore. Ariel says this was part of the whole witch hunting history. What? Benjamin being a wolf? Ariel says Chabad seem to have pretty much replaced the Messiah of Christianity with the Rebbe. Those who do. There are, again, those Chabadnikim who say, no, he died without an heir. He left us this great, all these teachings, Dvar Malchut. But no, he did die. That's what they say. Oh, Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering. Wow, so it was a really rare Magic the Gathering card, now worth 200,000 US, I'm assuming you mean US or Canadian, dollars for that matter. Oh, wow. Ariel says, problem is the problems did not stop during his lifetime. Right, are you referring to why he can't be Messiah? Plus, he is no longer around and accepted by everyone. Correct, that would preclude him from being Messiah. Because he died and because not everybody accepts him. Yeah, oh wow. Magic the Gathering. Been facing eviction since right before COVID. Well, it seems you're hanging in there. I was just listening to a podcast, Modern Wisdom. Chris Williamson was talking to Alex Hermosi, and I don't remember who said it, but they were discussing that idea of sometimes maintaining is winning. Sometimes just surviving is the victory, and you can live to fight another day. It's difficult to see that sometimes when you're so, so low and so, so down. It can be really difficult to see beyond the turmoil, or even, let's say, the clarity with which you view the place to which you have gotten. That in itself can be torture. But it's that I'm trying to bring back in my mind what they were talking about there. No, you know what? I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. Sometimes maintaining is winning. Of course, it's always nice to aspire to an actual win that is actionable. But sometimes just surviving. Oh, wait, the chat jumped again. Oh, okay, here it is. Magic the Gathering, okay. Okay. Couldn't possibly afford to move, said Sneezer. Nor was it mine, but the money would be nice. Oh, pardon me. Well, I mean, what did you buy the card? Did you get the card? Was it gifted to you? Sneezer says, without duality, there is no young old. There is only one unchanging. Yes, indeed. Do you believe God spoke on Mount, I'm assuming you were going to say Sinai? Yes, I believe there was a divine revelation of speech. A divine revelation of speech. I believe that there was a revelation that rested on the mountain, right? In all the different elements there, the cloud and the smoke and the fire and the horn and the booming voice for the first two. The first two were according to Midrash and according to Torah actually, but it's made more clear in Midrash that the first two, right, just like the dude said in what exactly happened on Mount Sinai, right? I am your God, there'll be no other God before you. Moshe, Moshe, come up to the mountain. But even if you say that he spoke all 10, yes, yes, I do believe that a revelation of God rested on Mount Sinai. I believe God spake was not as we do, far closer to timeless loving. Yes, timeless loving. It's said that in Sinai, it says it in the Midrash, kafa alehim hara kegigit. Meaning, I've mentioned this before, there's a Midrash that says that the divine revelation uprooted the entire mountain, moved it over the camp of the Israelites, and told them, accept the Torah, and if not, here will be your grave. And it's like, okay, we were coerced under pain of death to accept the Torah. How is that cohesive? How does that go with how does that go with being a good, keeper of the Torah? But how does that go with things that the Torah has been teaching and that the Torah teaches later? And the Midrash says, no, no, it wasn't that it was actually threatening with death. It was that the divine revelation that came upon the children of Israel at that time, it was so immense, it was so amazing. It was as if their eyes were tweaked and they could take in that full glare of the sun in all of its wonder and brilliance and see from its outer layers, deep to its core, from the earth, right? No filters necessary. It was something unbelievable. And it was something so unbelievable, such, how did you put it? Such timeless loving, as Sneezer says. They had no choice but to accept it. They were drawn to it like a magnet. We all have that spiritual side of us, that's why all religions exist. We have that need to have a connection with the divine. We have that spiritual gene inside of us, the God gene, right? That makes us, and I'm talking in a broad human generalization here, that turns us to that. And if under the right circumstances, we feel awe, we feel that divine revelation, that kindness washing over us, or even when we're being chastised, when things are not going well, those who establish a connection, a relationship with the Most High God can weather those storms more often than not. It was such a revelation of timeless love that it was as if he was asking them to choose right between life and death in that sense. It's like, of course we're choosing the Torah. We'll do anything. This is an amazing thing that I'm looking at. How can I not be drawn to it? How can I not want to immerse myself in it? This amazing psychedelic, right, and life-changing, creation-changing experience. Hearing that voice of God without, or rather, hearing the voice of God dying and being resuscitated, having the soul leave because it's just, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for. Broop. No, come back in there. We're not done. And then again, broop. So when you say timeless loving, and when the Midrash says kafa alehem har kegigit, right, he coerced them into it by putting the mountain over them and under pain of death. It's because it was almost as if that was going on. He made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Timeless loving is definitely on the nose. Definitely on the nose. There was one time when I was on a light dose of psilocybin mushrooms. I didn't mean for it to be this, right, this sort of Hebrew shamanic ritual like I did in other times. It was very much a small hit, a nice afternoon, and I'll give you the short version. I was standing on one side of a crosswalk of a large intersection. My woman that I was meeting at this place came into view and waited on the other side, let's say 30 feet away or so, 10 meters or so from me to her, crisscrossing with a few, let's say, paths and street. Forget my English. I'm so tired. It's almost 1 a.m. Crosswalks. I I take a look at her standing over there, and she's not doing anything special. She's just standing there waiting for the light to change. And I felt, as I did in other times, definitely, but that time was just something I didn't expect. That's why it left such an impression. That timeless loving, I really did feel it in that sense because something happened to me in that moment that I say has happened in other times, but that was definitely a more visceral one, I guess. I felt like my heart was expanding and filling up the entire intersection. I fell in love with her all over again in those precious seconds, looking at her, waiting for the light to change. And I'm thinking that obviously I say that the bulk of the psychedelic experiences that a man or woman for that matter undergo, that they ought to be, and no judgment, it's just I feel that the greater experience in a more well-rounded life, the psychedelic experiences that one undergoes ought to be more influenced by things that go on the inside than external things that are brought in from the outside, although they have their place. That timeless loving, that's simply what it made me think of now. Better translation would be God allowed. God allowed? So speech and allowance, I wonder what you mean. You have to have vocal cords to speak. I disagree. What you need to have is movement because the vocal cords are things that vibrate, right? And they cause the sound box, the voice box, whatever it is they're called, right, to sort of echo it out of my mouth. The very same thing, right? We are a mirror of the tree of life. We are a divine image. The things that exist in us exist in all creation on a larger scale. And so we have vocal cords over here in the, what is it, the larynx, right? If I'm not mistaken, something like that, something close to that. I might be mistaking it with a different organ. But that also exists in creation. And just like you need to have them vibrate a certain way in order for speech to come out, syllables to be, enunciated and pronounced, to have, right, have things start and stop and tempo and measure and I don't know what, you need to have that vibration. Well, that vibration already exists. It's that vibration that began with B of Bereshit, right? That vibration. The Torah that existed before the world, as we said, right? Before the world was created, there was Torah. The Torah is the blueprint, right? Istakel ba'oraita ubara alma, right? The Holy One, blessed be He, looked at the Torah and created the world. So if you're saying you have to have vocal cords to speak, I say if you're human, likely you will need vocal cords. If you're the divine revelation, then you have a revelation of chords that are vocal cords in the world, right? In creation. Exactly, and move air, which didn't exist yet. Spoke could be an entire topic. Ariel agrees with Sneezer. Yes, what is that speech? Right? There's amira, there's dibur. Those come from two different things, two different revelations. One is higher than the other. I don't remember which one now. Which is the higher one? See, I need to go over my stuff again. I mean, I am, thank God, but more so. But you can intend before speaking, which is very similar. Yes, it's as if to say, because it does say this in the texts, we have this long, drawn out, right? We have a thought, we process it, then we need to integrate it, we think about it, we implement it, right? We expand on it, and then we implement it into the world. And eventually it's this thing that exists. But for the Holy One, blessed be He, thinking and being are the same thing in the sense of divine revelation. So the intent, the speech, and the thought, right, the will, that all exists at the same time. Just like Sneezer says that past, present, and future all exist outside of time. Or is it, I'm sorry, that they exist, but there's a place that is outside of those things. In the very same way, you have that, you have the intent, and you have the speech, and you have the thought, and you have the will, and you have that which is outside of that. But and for the divine revelation can be all of those things at once, coming together in an instance, if you will, or in an instant. A lot of Orthodox Hebrew believe he spoke. Well, yes. I also lost about 10 Bitcoin by selling them back when they were only worth around $100. You're probably kicking yourself for that. How much would it be now? About 10 Bitcoin. So, yes, a lot of Orthodox Hebrews believe he spoke because it says so in the Torah. And there are different layers and different understandings and different interpretations and different extrapolations of the written Torah. But the fact that there's speech, right? The fact that there's this connection of vision, this connection of speech, of dialogue, this exists in the Torah. You can choose to believe that it was all in the mind's eye of those who were revealing, who it was being revealed to, be it the patriarchs, sages, prophets, whatever, in the Torah, out of the Torah, people who spoke to God, people who received instruction from an angel, right? You can say that it was all in their mind's eye. You can say, no, it was actually personified, whether it was looking as if it was in the flesh, or whether it was things that appeared this way or that way, right? A translucent creature made of fire, full of eyes. You know what I'm saying? Had to pay hydro. By hydro, you mean water bill? I still respect Chabad, says Ariel, and the teachings of the Rebbe. I do too. I do too because, again, I don't. Chabadnikim have taught me a lot over the years. So I respect them. I definitely respect them as a Hasidut. I also respect them. I have a soft spot for Chabad being the people who showed up at military bases, let's say on Yom Purim, on the holiday of Purim, to read the Megillah. That's Chabad. People who show up, for this or that before the holidays, different holidays, the high holidays, it's Chabad. And yeah, I They are very much, they've done good things. I'm sure they've done bad things, but they've done good things. And they try and bring people together. And that's an important thing. I'd rather be dead, but God isn't quite so merciful. I have to work yet. I have work yet to do. Well, Sneezer, what did they? What did it say in the Talmud? Tov la'adam shelo nivra mishenivra. It's. I did a whole video about this at some point. But the Talmud says, after a long discussion, they came to the conclusion that it would have been better that a man would not have been created. But now that he has been created, right, and by man, us, right, it would have been better that I would not have been created than that I would have been created. But, however, seeing that it's the case that I am a creation, that I do exist, it differs. One says yefashpesh b'ma'asav, and one says yemashmesh b'ma'asav. Yefashpesh b'ma'asav means that you need to sift, right? You need to sift through your dealings and doings, separate the wheat from the chaff, let things go, focus on good things, leave the bad things. And then there's yemashmesh. Yemashmesh is the good things, even the good things. You need to clean them even further and really, really make them pristine and shiny. And that's lemashmesh. And so, in other words, it would have probably been better if neither one of us, if none of us were created. However, seeing that we are here, let's make the best of it. Let's play the best game that we can with the hand that we're dealt. Let's try and shine ourselves up. Let's find out what we could actually be, right, in the course of a life, because we never know when it's going to end. And so it's incumbent in some way, it behooves us as creations, as that potential image of God, to see just how much of an image of God we can manifest, how much of an image of God can we mirror, right? There's so much human beings have such a mimetic quality, and if we are able to mime the divine attributes, right? If we are able to take them and embody them and personify them, to integrate them into our lives, this is what the Tomer Dvorah and many other teachings, but the Ramak's Tomer Dvorah from Elima, where he says, yes, we have the 10 Sfirot. Here's how you ought to behave in light of the 10 Sfirot. How do you behave in this way? How do you behave in that way in order for you to be a representation of the tree of life in fullness, or as full as can be? We're still irrevocably human. James Bong says, a group of, oh wait, it jumped again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. A group of 5 Jewish women are eating lunch in a busy cafe. Nervously, their waiter approaches the table. Ladies, he says, is anything okay? Nice. Ariel says, I love their friendly enthusiasm to engage with people of all backgrounds. Yes, I do like that too. Their slogan of Tzeirei Chabad, the youths of Chabad, is Mikol Halev lekol echad, from the heart to everybody, or to anybody. Chabad engage in a lot of charity, a lot of tzedakah. James Bong says 3 Jewish mothers are sitting on a bench arguing over which one's son loves her the most. The first one says, my son sends me flowers every Shabbos. You call that love? Fair, says the other mother. My son calls me every day. That's nothing, says the third woman. My son is in therapy 5 days a week, and the whole time he talks about me. Well done. I love a good joke. Sneezer says, God wouldn't need to threaten, but Yahweh would. Yahweh didn't know unconditional love yet. The real God just gives us more time. So again, we don't see eye to eye on this because I see the different names as manifestations, and I see them associated with certain divine revelations that have their root in the tree of life. So I treat them a certain way, and I can conceptualize them in a very specific way, depending on the context. But if I understand what you're saying that Yahweh was the god of storms, right? The ancient one in Canaan, right, in the area, or maybe north or east of there. So God wouldn't need to threaten, but Yahweh would because he's an aggressive sort of deity, right? And you're saying the real God just gives us more time. Ego, said Sneezer, demands worship and servitude. Well, ego demands worship and servitude. That idea of worship and servitude didn't really come until later, right? The flood, or let's say a few generations down the road, and certainly after the flood, and certainly after the Tower of Babylon with Abraham. It has to do with that degeneration of the generations. It has to do with that Yeridat Hadorot, that place where there's sort of a distance, right, from the way that things used to be. And so we are going down, down, down that line. Wow, you know what? It's already after 1 a.m. I think I'm going to go to sleep. I'll read a few more. I'll read a few more. Robert says, the dude I want you to react to is Ash Maze. Ash Maze? Are you trying to type Asher Meiza? Rabbi Asher Meiza? Or Ash Maze? Could be either one. Well, Robert, says Ariel, God spoke with words according to the Tanakh, as I understand it. But personally, I do not understand why people translate any of these names to God. The video is early Jewish text validates Christianity. Oh, okay, so I guess it's not Rabbi Asher Mesa. I know he's very much not for Christianity. Sneezer says, Ariel Marshall, I think of it more like telepathic speech. Except it's instantaneous and you just know everything's said. Well, Moses tells them over and over again, you heard the voice, you saw the fire, you didn't see God, but you saw the fire, you saw the smoke, you heard the horn, you heard the voice, and then you asked me to step in because you didn't want to die again. Ariel, do you believe that God actually spoke? Asks Robert. I do, says Robert. Ariel says, well, there's an argument that God has spoken to every Jew in history from Sinai. Yep, we all heard the voice, they say. Sneezer says, in a reality where there are infinitely more ways to misunderstand, God provided understanding. Ashmei's a Jew. Ashmei's a Jew? Not sure what you mean, Robert. Who? Riel says, maybe there was an event of direct mass verbal communication at Sinai. I don't think I will ever know till I get the working tardies. Sneezer says, HN, God is timeless loving, unconditional love. Keep on that target and you'll be well guided. I suppose I could make myself more on that target. There are times when I do feel that type of love. And, right, that timeless loving. And not just with my woman, right, with my kids, with others. I wouldn't be so arrogant, I guess, as to say, oh no, it's completely unconditional, and no. In this life, there's good and bad, right? Good and evil. There is this idea of conditions and constraints and different things that make us human and relationships we forge. So, but there definitely is something that comes really, really close to it with certain relationships, right? Of unconditional love. All right. On that note, I'll make a note 5 minutes before 1 a.m. That's when I'll pick up some other time this week, I hope. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate you sticking around. Your views, your comments, your likes, your subs, the insights that you bring, the questions that you ask. It's all so lovely. And I don't take it for granted. I've been broadcasting for what? How long already? Hang on a sec. How long has it been? Oh, wait, where's the clock? Never mind. Anyway, it's been a while. It's been a while. I started around midnight. So yeah, just over an hour, I think. Just over an hour. It has been a lot of fun. I hope, even though I was tired, that it was of some value, of some entertainment, something that you got out of this, because I know that I get a lot out of it. It's fun to hit the button, to go live, to have the dialogue. It's really lovely. I hope we have a good week full of wonderment, full of gratitude for big things and small, full of guiding ourselves towards unconditional love, right? And even if we know that we can't embody that in fullness, to go there, to want to practice it, to want to be on the receiving end of it and of the giving end of it, as, as well as we can manage. Be a blessing to yourselves and to others, and be blessed.